Welcome to part 19 of the history of war, year after year. I'm the Archivist. Welcome everybody in this 10th century BC. Like, comment and subscribe to help the channel grow, of course. We are back in Egypt in 943 BC, where Pharaoh Shoshek I, who has Libyan blood, takes over and starts the 22nd dynasty of this land with Perbastet or Bubastis in Greek in the southeast of the delta of the Nile as first capital. The 21st dynasty, short and unstable, had seen Libyans take more and more importance in the upper spheres of the country as they controlled most of the army in the northern parts. Their takeover after the death of Pharaoh Psusenes II was easy. Shoshenq was master of his armies as descendant of prisoners of war, and he, for some time, manages to diminish the influence of the great priests of Ammon reigning in Thebes, southward. A few years later starts the reign of Asurdan II of Assyria, which marks the start of a real renaissance for Assyria after a good century of difficulties. From 934 to 912, Asurdan II will vanquish the land of Katmuhu over here, northward, pillaging its capital Sara and executing its king Kundibale at Erbil, exposing his skin on the walls of the city. What a thing! Asurdan II would also combat Arameans approaching from the west, and maybe other peoples to restore his frontiers. Here is an Assyrian battering ram in action, as the sailed are trying to lift it up with a Lewis to prevent the Assyrians from using it against the doors or walls. This type of imagery will become very familiar to us in the upcoming years. Note the shield bearer to protect the archer and the Assyrians trying to dismantle, in a way, the wall, digging some kind of tunnel under it. 931 BC now. It is the death of King Solomon of Israel. By disposing of a war fleet thanks to the Phoenicians, building new fortresses and adding war chariots to the Israelite army, he would have limited his campaigns to an expedition against Zobah and Hamath, just over here, with at stake the control of Tadmir, Palmyra today. Solomon consolidated existing alliances between the Hebrews and their neighbors, but had to face, during his last years, a revolt of Damascus, of Aramean population mostly, like Hama, and of Edom southward, contesting his authoritarian reign. And after the death of Solomon, his son and successor, Roboam, is quickly contested. Jeroboam, an officer that had been forced by the late king to exile in Egypt, comes back and asks Rehoboam to be more magnanimous than his father. Upon his refusal, none other than Pharaoh Shoshenq I intervenes with his army, composed of Libyans, Egyptians, and Nubians, to take control of Gaza, over there, and many other places of Palestine. This allows Jeroboam to launch an open rebellion supported by 10 of the 12 Israelite tribes against Rehoboam. Jeroboam succeeds and becomes the first king of Israel, tyrannic Rehoboam being forced to content himself with the crown of Judah in the south, with Jerusalem as his capital. North of him, the capital of Israel will often change at first: Shechem, Phanuel, Tirzah, Samaria. Both Hebraic kingdoms fortify themselves, hostility being strong between the two. Both have cities with double walls, hypothetically full of earth in case of a siege, but emptied to serve as barracks or warehouses in time of peace. Generally, Israel, with better conditions for agriculture and a higher population, will have an advantage on Judah. And as we spoke about the intervention of Shoshenq I of Egypt in favor of Jeroboam, here is a relief of the temple of Karnak showing the god Amun-Re holding names of all the settlements taken by Shoshenq I. He's holding a kopech in his hand as well. And in 925 BC, Pharaoh Shoshenq I takes and plunders Jerusalem, capital of Judah, showing indeed the difficulties Judah will have to face. Dor and Bethshan, the future Scythopolis, who the hell came up with that pronunciation, are also struck by Pharaoh's 1200 war chariots and 60,000 cavalrymen? Propaganda. Anyway, Rehoboam of Judah recognizes himself vassal of Egypt, but fortifies anew and assuredly doesn't refrain from launching some attacks against Israel north of him before the end of his reign. A dozen years later is when Judah's second king, Abijam, scores several victories over Israel, notably at the Battle of Mount Zemaraim against Jeroboam I. Sources of the time have it that 1,000,000 men would have been involved in this battle. Yeah, sure. Anyway, again, Abijam gains the upper hand over Israel, taking the cities of Jeshana, Ephron, and Bethel. After him, his son Asa reinforces the fortifications of Judah, repulses aggressions of the Madianites from Moab, east of the Jordan River, and one from Pharaoh Osorkon I from Egypt, backed by the Nubian Zerah. It's against these two that Asa triumphs at the Battle of Zafta Valley, with again unfathomable quantities of soldiers involved. He pursues the vanquished up to the coast, probably doing kind of this, where peace is reinstated. Enough of the Hebrews for now. In 912 BC, the Neo-Assyrian Empire from here rises even higher with Adad-nirari II. From Assur, he retakes many lands previously lost to the Sea Peoples, Amorites, and Arameans. Against these last, the small kingdom of Bit-Bayani, over here, is ruthlessly tamed twice. Before 900, Adad-nirari pillages Urartu, northward in nowadays Armenia, and still hungry, the Assyrian will attack as well Shamash Mudamik of Babylonia, which has recently had to suffer some Elamite attack as well. Shamash Mudamik is possibly killed by the Assyrian in a battle at the feet of Mount Yalman. A quick jump back in Israel for the 2 years long reign of Nadab, son of Jeroboam. He besieges the Philistine place of Gibeton, but is assassinated in the process by his men, led by General Baasha. It is this Baasha who retakes the throne of Israel and moves the capital to Tirzah. He'll ally with the king of Damascus, north of Israel, and build a fortress at Ramah, close to Judah, to threaten this rival kingdom of the south. Okay, back to the Assyrians. Adad-nirari II seizes the city of Nisibis, Nusaybin today on a tributary of the Euphrates, just north of here, not long before the end of the century. This happens during a war against the small kingdom of Tema, in which at least one battle is fought. And in 900, Nabu-shuma-ukin I, the new king of Babylonia, tries a counterattack against the Neo-Assyrians, but he's repulsed by Adad-nirari II. This one takes Zanku and Hit along the Euphrates, but apparently he backs up a little when the peace is renewed with Nabu-shuma-ukin. Daughters are exchanged as brides to settle the reconciliation. Alright, 900 is also the possible year of the founding of the kingdom of Samal, west of Mounts Taurus, by the Aramean Gabar, who just took the city of Samal in southeastern Anatolia. The Arameans are also now in control of the lands that were once ago part of the Yamkad kingdom around Aleppo. They'll take Arwad or Arpad off the coast not far from there, just over here, while some others will advance eastward, inland towards the Euphrates. And way south, the Aramean king of Damascus, Ben-Hadad I, takes for himself the upper Jordan Valley from the Judah of King Asa before allying with him to attack Israel of King Baasha, seizing lands belonging to the tribes of Dan and Naphtali. Beaten, Baasha gives back to Judah the place of Ramah that he had taken beforehand. Asa destroys the fortifications of Ramah and reuses the materials to reinforce other strongholds. And at last for this year, we will notice in Greek Peloponnese the submission of the eastern Sinurian tribe by Sparta. King Echestratos the Agiad would have led the expedition. Later, in 891 BC, Tukulti-Ninurta II succeeds his father Adad-Nirari II and expands Assyria north and southward. Under his reign, he will create a mounted guard, a horse. Depictions of the time show teams of two horsemen working together, one holding the reins of the other to help him aim and shoot his bow more easily. Sometimes we even see two riders on the same animal. The Assyrian army of the time has a very efficient logistics, armies and supplies traveling on paved routes throughout the empire. 3 years later is a possible date for a battle between Nabu-apla-iddina of Babylon and Sudians that have settled here and along the Euphrates. On the other hand, the Babylonian tries to maintain as specific relations as possible with powerful Assyria north of him. And now, in 885, turmoil reigns in Israel. What a surprise! Ela, recent successor of Baasha, is assassinated in the capital Tirzah by Zimri, general of the charioteers, who is promptly besieged by an unhappy army. He dies a mere week after his betrayal, maybe committing suicide inside the royal palace. Omri, supreme master of the army, becomes king, but he'll have to battle against another pretender, Tibni, until 881. 884. New king of Assyria, Ashurnasirpal II, will reign for 20 years approximately. He will conquer Canaan, tame a revolt in the city of Bitsuru, send ships to submit Cyprus, west of here, and move his capital from Assur to Nimrod over there, or Kalu back then, city where the great arsenal of Shalmaneser or Ekalmasarti will one day be built. Tyre, city of King Ethobal I on the Phoenician coast, will indubitably know frictions with the Assyrians, having gained some influence up to Cyprus recently. We'll note that iron, reaching African Egypt now, is already extensively used by the Assyrians at the moment. Also, know that Assyrians were cruel conquerors, Ashurnasirpal II skinning, flaying, amputating, burning, walling, and more his vanquished adversaries and their families. So much for the war has become crueler in modern times chorus, right? Here you can see an Assyrian siege tower at work. In 881, Omri is really new king of Israel after defeating and executing his rival Tibni. He declares Samaria in this sector new capital of the kingdom. Before the end of his reign in 5 years approximately, he'll suffer a setback against the Arameans of Damascus, but will submit King Mesa of Moab, cease hostilities with Judah south of him, allying with Tyre and Sidon too on the coast of Phoenicia. One of his sons, maybe his successor Achab, will suffer defeat against Mesa of Moab. The following year, the Ammonites, under Judean influence, they are right there, regain their independence, but tensions will remain strong until the middle of the next century with Judah and Israel as well. And, at last, in 878 BC, Arabians are attacked by Ashurnasirpal II of Assyria. Some Babylonian troops come to their aid, but to no avail. Here, you see Assyrian soldiers crossing a river, probably the Euphrates, as Arameans were almost all settled west of Assyria. Dismantled tires have been loaded on rafts, and soldiers are crossing using some kind of bladders. That's all for today, my friends. Thanks for your comments, likes, and subscriptions, and I'll see you in the next video for more Assyrian cruel domination. Bye bye.